Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Sanjaya Baru, former advisor to Prime Minister Manmohan Singh during UPA 1, to discuss with us a book that he has written and which was recently released called 1991, How P.V. Narasimha Rao Made History. Now, why Sanjay has written this book is because 1991 in many ways marks a watershed in our politics, in our foreign policy, and in our economic policy pursued by our country, our government. So, all these three critical areas saw a major reset. And in that backdrop, he also discusses the key players during that phase. And of course, Narasimha Rao was the key player. He was the Prime Minister who drove everything. He drove economic reforms, new economic policy, he drove new foreign policy post Cold War disintegration of the Soviet Union. And most importantly, in my view, Mr. Narasimha Rao also ushered in a new kind of politics within the Congress party. The Congress party is not the same animal as today as it used to be, say, during Indira Gandhi's time. It's far more decentralized. Some of the credit for that must go to P.V. Narasimha Rao, who initiated a lot of measures. His political initiatives also could be seen as reflecting in what is happening in the Congress party today. So, welcome to our show, Sanjay Baru. You have been a very keen watcher of Narasimha Rao, even subsequent prime ministers. Manmohan Singh, you wrote a book, The Accidental Prime Minister, which was a bestseller. And I find it interesting that even this book also describes Narasimha Rao as an accidental Prime Minister. The back cover describes him. So who was more accidental Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh or Narasimha Rao?
Well, I think Narasimha Rao, certainly.
Yeah.
Because don't forget that till 1 month before he became Prime Minister, he himself did not see the possibility.
He was into retirement, political retirement.
He was going to become a sannyasi, he was going to work in a temple in South India. Rajiv Gandhi was very much alive, he was the leader of the campaign. You know, till Rajiv's assassination on 21st of May, nobody imagined Narasimha Rao would become Prime Minister. In the case of Dr. Manmohan Singh, you know, I wrote a column in May 1999, in fact, in Times of India at that time, saying that if the Congress ever comes back to power, you know, he's the only likely prime ministerial candidate. So in some ways, there were some of us at least who thought that Manmohan Singh was a potential prime ministerial candidate. Frankly, I didn't expect Sonia Gandhi to become a prime minister of India. So if it was not Sonia, if it was not Rahul, at that time Rahul was too young, it had to be someone from outside the family. So in some ways, Manmohan Singh was accidental, but not as accidental as Narasimha Rao.
Okay. Although Manmohan Singh himself was, in some ways, was brought out of retirement by Narasimha Rao to become finance minister.
That's right.
Yeah.
Manmohan Singh was, vice chairman of University Grants Commission, or chairman of University Grants Commission, and then he was actually looking at a job in the Delhi School of Economics. There was a selection committee that actually met, which was going to offer him a professorship in Delhi School of Economics. At that point, because I.G. Patel said no to Narasimha Rao. In fact, Narasimha Rao's first choice was Dr. I.G. Patel. I.G. Patel was Governor Reserve Bank when Morarji Desai was Prime Minister. And Narasimha Rao knew I.G. Patel because in 1981, when Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister and Narasimha Rao was the Foreign Minister, I.G. Patel was still the Governor of the Reserve Bank and was involved in negotiating the IMF loan of 1981. So Narasimha Rao was familiar with IG and therefore asked IG to join him. IG then said no, because he had actually gone into retirement, settled down in Baroda. And when he declined the offer, that is when Narasimha Rao turned to PC Alexander and said, suggest another name. And then Mr. Alexander suggested Manmohan Singh.
One of the interesting things I find in this book, of course, Narasimha Rao's contribution to the new economic policy is known to everybody. And you rightly give credit to the political leadership at that time and not the technocrats, so-called economists, who sometimes like to claim credit for what they did. They were mere implementers, right? but the more interesting thing that I found in your book is the fact that you trace a certain continuity within the Congress party post Narasimha Rao in terms of the way party began to function, right, and the way a certain degree of decentralization willy-nilly crept into the party's functioning. And Narasimha Rao was, as you mentioned in the book, he held a CWC election in which a lot of people, some of his own supporters got defeated, like Pranab Mukherjee and Karunakaran. But then he had the courage to hold elections. Congress party before that was not known to hold election. Under Indira Gandhi, it was a
72 was the last.
Yeah, highly centralized entity. Now from there, we've had two prime ministers who were non-family prime ministers, non-Gandhi family prime ministers. So do you think that process continues? A certain degree of has there been a mindset change?
Yeah.
Does Congress work in a decentralized way today?
Good question. But before I answer that question, I find it interesting that you said in passing that we all recognize Narasimha Rao provided the political leadership. It was not just the economists who did what they did. But one of the reasons I've written this book is in fact to underline this point. Because if you see in the public discourse over the last couple of years on the anniversary of 91, Narasimha Rao's name has hardly been mentioned. It's always the economists, whether it's Manmohan Singh or Montek Singh Ahluwalia or Rangarajan or Rakesh Mohan or, it's the economists whose names are repeatedly mentioned in the media.
Yeah.
And very few people have given credit to Narasimha Rao.
He managed the parliament.
He managed the parliament. He managed the party. His own party.
Parliament.
They were opposition to the reforms from Arjun Singh and his own party.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is that even after this book has come out, some of the commentators who are critics of Narasimha Rao have said to me, "Oh, what's the big deal? What did Narasimha Rao do? He just signed on the file. He was not actively involved in thinking on policy. The ideas were already there." In some ways that is Jairam Ramesh's argument, that the ideas were already there and Narasimha Rao only implemented what he was asked to. But what I've shown in this book, based on evidence from the time, conversations with people at the time, was that in fact he played a proactive role in pushing forward for the reforms. His address to the nation on 22nd June was written by him along with Naresh Chandra. None of the economists in government were involved in writing that address. And if you read that address, and I've reproduced it here, it's very clear what he had in mind. He was talking about India opening up to the world. He was not just talking about reducing fiscal deficit and bringing down the deficit of the government, which was the crisis point at that time. He was talking about globalization and India being open
in a
to
sense,
the world.
he was also calibrating the whole transition in economic policy and foreign policy, which were linked because we were rapidly globalizing.
Before I come to foreign policy, let me
and this the calibration is a very the pace of reforms and calibration was as important as the fact of opening up.
Yeah, so that brings me to your question about political management.
Political management.
And I think that is an extremely important role that he plays because there was opposition to what he was doing within the Congress. To imagine that there was all these ideas were there, a file was brought to him, he simply signed and he had neutral role is completely wrong. He was dealing with opposition within the Congress party. From Arjun Singh, from all the Congress left, Vailar Ravi, A.K. Antony, even people like Balram Jakhar, there was a lot of opposition to what Narasimha Rao was doing.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Sanjay, you also mentioned, and this is also captured by Vinay Sitapathi's book, with which you are also in some ways associated. All the Gango liberalizers, economic liberalizers like Jairam Ramesh and others, they wanted to sort of go for reforms, big bang, but they didn't have the political language. That's the sense I get.
That's
the
right.
Political language and the calibration was actually Narasimha Rao's contribution, where he poses reforms as a continuation of Nehruvian mixed economy.
One, as a continuation of Nehru. Secondly,
and Indira Gandhi's industrial policy.
His term middle way.
So was that was his idea, Narasimha Rao's idea of?
Absolutely, which is why I have reproduced in this book the entire speech, his address to the AICC in April 1992, where he formulates his theory of the middle way. He says we are not.
I saw the middle with that chapter is
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
So, this whole thing was a political message to the Congress that I am not deviating from Nehru's path. All I am doing is applying to today's conditions the ideas of Nehru. There's a very famous phrase from Mao Zedong that application of concrete analysis of the concrete reality. So, in a sense, Narasimha Rao was saying, I am doing a concrete analysis of today's concrete reality and readjusting policy to deal with today's challenges.
Okay. So in a way, you also mentioned that the idea of a mixed economy and the middle way was carried forward in its totality by Vajpayee, by the NDA, and subsequently even by Dr. Manmohan Singh under UPA 1 and UPA 2.
That's right.
So in that sense, that the middle way policy had a certain long-term traction.
Absolutely.
Would you say that?
In fact, it's very important to remember that from 1991 till today, every single major political party in the country has either been in government or supported the government of the day, including the communist parties. The governments of Narasimha Rao, Deve Gowda, Gujral, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh. You take all these 5 governments over these 25 years, every single government has seen every single party either in it or supporting it.
Yeah.
And yet not one policy initiative taken by Narasimha Rao has been reversed.
Yeah.
So in that sense, there's a fantastic continuity of policy. The pace has changed. Some have been faster. I think Vajpayee certainly pushed the pace a bit. And Manmohan Singh certainly did in UPA 1. He was able to push the pace a bit. But it's only a difference of pace. I don't think direction changed.
Would you say that Narasimha Rao, going by your account and other accounts, one clearly gets the impression that Narasimha Rao should also be credited with the whole idea of introducing consensual politics. He ran a minority government for 2 years until he then got majority in parliament, which was of course controversial. But then he consensual politics that he initiated managed the party as well as parliament. Some say no prime minister has managed parliament the way he did since then. Perhaps Vajpayee. Of course, Vajpayee was also a big consensual person. So
Correct.
prime minister. We've had a series of consensual PMs, and then in today's context, I see, say, Narendra Modi, not such a consensual man. He resembles more like the pre-Narasimha Rao Congress leaders, like maybe Rajiv Gandhi or Indira Gandhi, right? How do you see that?
No, certainly. I mean, Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi had majorities in parliament, and Mr. Modi has a majority in
So
parliament.
that brings a certain level of
confidence plus
even
plus.
arrogance, maybe. Yeah.
And that arrogance comes from the knowledge that they won the election.
Yeah.
Indira won the election.
So it gets personalized.
Right?
Yeah.
So Mr. Modi sees the verdict of 2014 as his verdict.
Yeah.
That was not the view.
And so did Rajiv Gandhi of 1984.
Well, Rajiv Gandhi's verdict was because his mother was killed.
Yeah.
Let's not forget it.
I know, but
and
then,
Narasimha Rao knew that he became PM because Rajiv was killed. So there was a certain moderation of his, prime minister leadership. But certainly both Mr. Vajpayee and Dr. Manmohan Singh knew that they were prime ministers because they were the consensual prime ministers. After all, in BJP, the taller leader was L.K. Advani.
Yeah.
The BJP, many in the BJP, in fact, wanted Mr. Advani to be prime minister, right? But why does Mr. Vajpayee become prime minister? Because he was leading a coalition. And the coalition wanted someone like Mr. Vajpayee because he had a more consensual image. The same thing with Dr. Manmohan Singh. Sonia Gandhi was the president of the Congress. But a Congress-led coalition could not have her as a prime minister, nor indeed Rahul. I think they had to have someone outside, and that was Manmohan Singh.
Another controversial issue, Sanjay, is how much was Sonia remote controlling the government at that time? Now, there's one view that she genuinely stepped back and she was not, she didn't want to, during the period of mourning Rajiv Gandhi after his assassination, she clearly didn't want to take control of either the party or be interested in government affairs. Now, there's this view that in Congress typically what happens is that the other leaders, they start acting on or project that they are acting on behalf of the
That's right.
family and then start playing games.
That's right.
So was that more of that, or
Well,
what do you think?
I think there were two issues. One, Narasimha Rao clearly saw Mrs. Gandhi as the widow of a former prime minister.
Yeah.
He did not see her as the future of the Congress party.
Yeah.
I think there's a fundamental difference. While there were many around Sonia Gandhi who later thrived in the Congress, who actually saw her and her children as the future of the Congress. So there was a fundamental difference between those who saw the future of the Congress going back to some other elected leaders, while I think those around what I call the coterie in the book, seeing and certainly someone like Fotedar talks about this in his book. He says he could not imagine any other future for the Congress except the family. That's one difference. But the second difference is, I think you're absolutely right that in the initial years, I don't think Mrs. Gandhi saw herself being in politics. But I think over a period of time, she was convinced that if not her, at least her son should be, come back and lead the Congress. So there was a coterie that kind of encouraged this. And that created tension because Narasimha Rao, unlike Dr. Manmohan Singh, was not willing to play a number 2 role. You see, he was very clear that he wanted to be like Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, both Prime Minister and Party President. And till 96, he took both jobs.
Yeah.
He took it very, very clear. The only way you can run the Congress Party is by controlling both jobs.
And after that, Sitaram Kesari, of course,
when the Congress is out of power. But when the Congress is in power, both jobs have been controlled by the same person. And that was the pattern from in Indira's days. While I think there were more and more people in the Congress who wanted him to shed the party presidentship and for someone else to take it up. And finally, Mrs. Gandhi took it up.
Yeah. And I guess it's what comes out of from the book is also the fact that Narasimha Rao stayed loyal to the family throughout. Even during emergency, he was loyal to Indira Gandhi, and his loyalty was never in question. And he became PM, and then, of course, the coterie around the families maybe created the impression that there was some distancing happening, and on issues like maybe the progress in the Rajiv Gandhi assassination case, which was, I think, one of the sticking points between Sonia Gandhi and Narasimha Rao. So, you have not sort of gone in detail into the tension between the two and how they tried to resolve that tension, or how the tension did not get resolved. So,
well, first of all, I don't go into that because I don't see any evidence of that in 91. Right? Okay. This book is about 91.
Okay, right? So, yeah, right.
Yeah, I've confined myself to 91. In fact, it's very important. I put Narasimha Rao's face on the cover, and it talks about the importance of Narasimha Rao because, in a sense, he shaped the outcome of 91. But don't forget, he became Prime Minister only in June 91. From January to June, the Prime Minister of India was Chandrasekhar. And the first 2 chapters of my book are actually an analysis of what happened during Chandrasekhar's time.
Sure.
So,
it's quite fascinating how Venkatraman initially is not in favor of Chandrasekhar taking over as PM, but subsequently he pleads with Rajiv Gandhi to sort of let him, as Congress leader, supporting from outside.
That's right.
To let him present a budget and at least bring some stability in the medium term.
Venu, that's the other important part of my book which nobody has actually commented on, and I would like to draw attention to it, which is the role of R. Venkatraman. We have all underestimated the role of R. Venkatraman, particularly those of us in the media, political journalists who write. R. Venkatraman was the Finance Minister of India in 81 when Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister, and India borrowed from the IMF. He handled the IMF negotiations of 1981. So in 1990-91, as President of India, he was fully aware.
He understood the gravity of the situation.
He understood what was happening. He understood the need to go to the IMF. He advised Rajiv not to destabilize the government. He helped Chandrasekhar in helping Chandrasekhar make up his mind. He advised Narasimha Rao. In fact, Narasimha Rao has recorded that he mentioned to R. Venkatraman that I'm thinking of I.G. Patel or Manmohan Singh, and then R. Venkatraman says that both are good names. So in that sense, R. Venkatraman was very much involved in thinking on policy and acting on policy, and he was extremely concerned that political instability during that period, caused by the decision of the Congress to withdraw support to Chandrasekhar, was precipitating a massive crisis. So we need to actually acknowledge the role of R. Venkatraman, which I've done in my book.
Which I've done in your book. Another point which strikes me as very interesting in your book, Sanjay, is While it's true that Congress party has historically largely been driven by the family, the Gandhi family, which has been changing as we've seen from Narasimha Rao's time until now. The party today is far more decentralized, some would say even anarchic, with no single line of command, etc. What I find interesting is a lot of, there are specific examples of Congress leaders who were during different periods shunned by the family and who were kind of, who were in the, if you will, in Banwas for periods, like Pranab Mukherjee. When Rajiv Gandhi becomes PM, he's marginalized. He says in your book that he's shocked that he's not even in the, Union Council of Ministers. Again, during Narasimha Rao's time, Pranab Mukherjee is not in the Union Council of Ministers. Again, he's very disappointed. So there was this bias against Pranab Mukherjee, which gets built because after Indira Gandhi's assassination, some people around Rajiv Gandhi built this theory that he was pitching to become PM. Now, which P.C. Alexander subsequently, which you mentioned in his book, rejects that theory. But Pranab Mukherjee eventually survives, again comes back, becomes finance minister, defense minister, and today is president. So would you say that things are not really all that bad? People do survive and grow in spite of falling foul of the family from time to time.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think...
If you take this example.
Yeah, but I think it's important to recognize that the power of the family is there only when they are in government. When they are not in government, all manner of other people become important. So, the fortunes wax and wane. And if you look, in fact, Pranab Mukherjee is a good example. If you look at his fortunes, they wax and wane. Rajiv Gandhi throws him out when he's in power, but then when Rajiv loses in '89, kind of gets Pranab back. So, right? But his becoming president now is the consequence of several factors, and I think Congress party's role is not the only role. There are other regional parties that played an important role.
No, but I think that's also today's reality, that there is no single monolithic party. So there is
that is today's reality after the defeat of 2014. But before the defeat of 2014, that was not the reality. And the fact is that Mr. Mukherjee became president because he got the support from across several parties. If it was not just the Congress, I'm not sure. Because after all, he wanted to become Deputy Prime Minister during UPA 1. And we know that Mrs. Gandhi went to a press conference in Shimla and said, there'll be no Deputy Prime Minister. Right. So the fortunes of individuals wax and wane in the Congress. I think that's true of many political parties in this country. Look at Amar Singh in the Samajwadi Party, inside, outside, up and down, stuff like that. So many political parties, there are individuals. That is why Indian politicians never retire. But because they think that someday they'll come back again.
But would you agree with the general proposition that Congress today is far less centralized than it was during Indira Gandhi's time or Rajiv Gandhi's time?
Certainly, but far less centralized than it was two years ago. But certainly during the UPA, it was highly centralized. Nothing could happen in the party. I mean,
but even during UPA, weren't there sort of strong regional leaders like YSR Reddy who actually held their own, isn't it?
YSR was the exception that proved the rule. I mean, he held his own because he brought 30 MPs to the party. I mean, let's face it, 2004 victory of the UPA forming government was because of YSR.
So this is critical, what you just said. Today there is a situation where in a more regionalized coalition kind of polity, I would still claim that we are in a coalition era. We are nowhere near even a kind of single party or two-party rule. Regional leaders who bring more MPs to the Lok Sabha will exercise clout within the Congress.
Yes, within any party.
Like Sharad Pawar did for a long time.
Absolutely. I mean, look,
and even in the BJP, he suffered for that also.
Even in the BJP, Mr. Modi's power derives from the fact that he brought these MPs into parliament. It was his campaign of 2014 that helped so many of these members of parliament to get elected. So that's true for any political party. Ultimately, like in politics, the business, the bottom line is who brings in the money. In politics, the bottom line is who brings in the votes.
Which also probably explains, Sanjay, why Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi is so obsessed with every successive election because he has to do well. Otherwise, if he doesn't do well, say in UP or say Gujarat or Punjab, to that extent, he is aware that his within the party, his unstinted support may sort of wane.
Yeah, sure.
So
That's the nature of democracy.
that's the nature of democracy. Thank you very much, Sanjay Baru, for talking to us. It was indeed it was a great, very instructive reading your book and seeing certain trends which have held right through the last 25, 30 years. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.